please join me in welcoming to the stage Julie Oberfeld from Capital One. She's going to talk about the looming skills gap and the diversity crunch. Please welcome Julie.
Thank you, Melinda. Hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I am just really excited to talk about this topic today. I started my career as a software engineer, but I was not a computer science major in college. Oh, I actually need a clicker. I'm so sorry. Just realized I don't have my right slides up here. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, I was not a computer science major in college. I actually was a theoretical math major, and I went to Miami University of Ohio. I took a couple coding classes my freshman year, and I thought maybe I'd pursue this new thing called tech, but I was really passionate about math, so I ended up pursuing a math degree. I took one coding class my senior year. It was basic programming, because we had these new things on campus that I thought I should learn something about called personal computers. Okay, so it's been a while. Well, I decided not to, and I was going to get a PhD in math, and I decided not to pursue that PhD. And I was really fortunate that a bank in Cincinnati offered me the opportunity to become a software engineer. Well, they obviously didn't hire me because I had a computer science background, and they didn't hire me because I knew the language that I was going to code in, which was COBOL. They actually hired me for my demonstrated aptitude in problem-solving skills and my curiosity to learn. And they also didn't think twice about the fact that I was a woman, because, in fact, our department at the time was nearly half women. We looked a lot like these folks down in the lower left of the slide. So through my career, not only did I learn COBOL, but I learned a whole lot of other languages, databases, and a lot of tools, all on the job. I have had the most amazing career. I've seen so much change in technology over my time. I was really there at some pivotal moments in our industry, like at the advent of the internet. How cool to be in tech at that time. In 1995, in fact, had a really cool opportunity to work on phone technology. We had the idea that our customers might be interested in getting their balances and banking transactions on a phone. Sounds like a pretty good idea, right? But in 1995, that phone was a big desk phone about this big with a screen on it that people had to have in their house. So it was a great idea. Maybe the form factor wasn't quite right, and we needed to wait a few years for that. But this is just such an amazing journey that I have had in technology. And I tell you a little bit about my story because I think, unfortunately, this doesn't happen very often anymore. A woman who doesn't have a computer science background, but gets the opportunity to learn everything that she needs to learn on the job to have a thriving career in technology that has spanned 3 decades. And I really think that it is, it's so important that we think about how this, my background is reflected in this problem that we have about this looming skills gap. I got involved in diversity inclusion about 5 years ago. I was just a tech executive, and 2 women walked in my office, and talked to me about this challenge that we were having in the technology industry. And I was awakened, I'm sad to say, and I was also just really intrigued. And the more I learned, the more passionate I became. And I eventually decided a couple years ago to step down from a divisional CIO job at Capital One to become the head of our diversity and inclusion work in our technology organization, where I now spend 50% of my time on that effort and 50% of my time leading technology initiatives. And I have started to realize that for me, I'm most passionate about diversity and inclusion because I think it's the right thing to do. I think everyone should have the opportunity to have the amazing career that I have had, and that these barriers that we have for a lot of people getting into tech should be removed. But as a tech executive, I also realize that sometimes when you need to influence your company around diversity and inclusion, if you only frame it within the right thing to do, it can sometimes become a side project that people sort of pick up and look at when it's convenient, versus realizing that it is absolutely a critical differentiator for solving business problems. I find that I really start to look at all business problems through the lens of diversity and inclusion, and this skills gap problem is no different. I think that it is so important for executives to realize that diversity and inclusion is not an option. It is an absolute imperative. And part of the reason is that we are in the midst of a digital revolution. Like the industrial revolution and the information age, technology is disrupting every experience that we have and completely changing our society. And I think companies are thriving and failing faster than ever before, depending on the degree to which they actually embrace that we're in the midst of this digital revolution. But even when you decide that you get it, that you need to embrace digital transformation, it's really not at all easy. The landscape is constantly shifting. Skills are broad and varied that we need to stay competitive in tech. And the pace of change is unbelievably fast. And when we go to find the talent that we need to fill all of our open roles for all those skills, it's really super competitive out there. I think that when you think about the skills that we need that are broad and varied, the speed at which things are changing, and this scarcity of resource problem that we have, it's no wonder that solving for the skills gap challenge is really a key and important imperative for CIOs and CTOs and even CEOs today. So I want to talk a little bit about some data to help frame some of this up. First of all, the demand for tech jobs is growing. We all know it, but maybe we don't sometimes appreciate that it's actually growing at over 200,000 jobs a year. There have been 1.6 million tech jobs added in just the last 8 years. And even though there are some new skills certainly on the horizon, traditional jobs like software engineers have grown 76% in the last 8 years. Web developers, 56%. It's absolutely astonishing, the pace of growth, and the sheer number of jobs is sometimes what we refer to as the skills gap. But in our research at Capital One, we also found that there are a tremendous number of new types of skills, and there's a real shift in the mix of skills that are going to be needed in technology to stay competitive. What we found in our research was that hybrid roles, the kind that require technical acumen along with business acumen and soft skills, are growing at 2 times the rate of non-hybrid roles. Roles like data scientists and UX and UI designers. And there's this whole category of automation. We all know that machine learning and artificial intelligence is really disrupting our industry, and it's even disrupting technology itself, and this whole category of automation around the tech itself is a new area of skills. And then emerging tech, like there's always something new happening. There are going to be skills 5 years from now that we can't even envision today. And I found it fascinating to see a list of emerging skills of things that I wasn't even familiar with when I first saw the list. Things like citizen data scientist, AI ethicist. Obviously, things like blockchain and quantum computing are disrupting our industry as well. This evolving mix of skills and broad variety of skills, along with the sheer demand, collectively are what I refer to as the skills gap. And what about the speed? We all know it, we feel it. We say technology is growing exponentially fast, but it's kind of hard to measure, actually. One way that we might look at it is the rate at which US patents have been issued. It's interesting to see that in the first 100 years of the US Patent Office, we issued less than 400,000 patents. That's about 10 patents on average a day. In the period for 25 years between 1990 and 2015, over 4 million patents, or on average 500 new ideas a day that are being patented. That is a lot of change to keep up with. Another way that we can think about the pace of change with technology skills is the rate in which these skills are becoming obsolete. And current research is showing that tech skills are obsolete in 3 to 5 years. That's fast in a career that hopefully will span 30 or 40 years for someone. Something I found really interesting is this index that tracks programming languages. And in 2001, they were tracking 25 languages. Today, over 150 active languages. And it's really amazing to see that languages I feel like our staff just learned, like Ruby and R, are already on this doomed programming list. Oh, wow. And then Pascal. I found this one really funny. I had to pull this one up. Pascal was around when I was in college. And in 2009, it was number 14 on the active programming list. And since then, in 10 years' time, over 200 programming languages have surpassed Pascal. That is wild. A lot of change and a lot of speed. And so that brings us to this scarcity challenge. With tech jobs growing at 4 times the national average of all other jobs at over 30% growth a year, there are 700,000 open tech jobs today in the US alone, yet we're only graduating about 70,000 students from computer science-related programs. That math doesn't really quite work. And even when you think about non-traditional channels like boot camps, they're graduating about 20,000 students. So we're up to 90,000 new entrants to the market. The math still doesn't work with 200,000 jobs a year growth. This is a big problem. And definitely, our diversity challenge is contributing to the scarcity problem. We all, D&I professionals, probably know a lot of these stats, but 24% of the workforce being women, 15% of the workforce being Hispanic and African American people combined. And something I'm passionate about, intersectionality, that women of color, including Hispanic, African American, and Asian women, make up only 9% of the tech workforce. Certainly, if over half the population doesn't see themselves in tech, we're contributing to the scarcity problem that's creating all of these open roles. So what are we going to do about this? I'm going to say that if we're going to close this looming skills gap that's right in front of us, we're going to have to think about things differently. So I'm going to take a little bit of step back in time, because when this industry started, there weren't computer science majors. In fact, the people in tech looked for people who were thinkers, who had analytical and mathematical minds, and they taught them to code on the job. On-the-job training was the only path to getting into technology. There were even companies, I remember when I first started, that were really noted for hiring people from the outside and training them on how to code and then filling their IT departments with the people that they trained. Maybe they could have been called corporate boot camps before we had the term boot camp. And even when computer science and information systems degrees came into vogue, there really was no predefined profile of who fit into those majors. You know, therefore, in the mid-'80s, it was actually more diverse in computer science than it is now. Women made up 30% of computer science graduates in 1984. Now they're only 18%. So something happened along the way. With the advent of the personal computer, the internet, apps, we created a new profile of who belongs in technology. Stereotypes emerged. Universities started to create weed-out courses and pretty much expect you to already know how to code when you got to college if you were going to compete in a computer science degree. Companies started to expect to hire all the skills they needed from those universities and from the marketplace versus training people internally. And then this new culture fit definition arrived on the scene. We started to look for, you know the names, the unicorn, the programmer, the boy genius. And unfortunately, along the way, we basically locked out that more inclusive profile that was the start of this industry. The men and women who were just curious and mathematicians and wanted to learn everything they could about technology. So I contend that maybe we need to return to some of our roots, maybe with some modern day considerations. First of all, we're not going to be able to hire our way to all the skills that we need in technology like we've been doing over the last decade or so. With the rate of obsolescence that I talked about, what we're going to turn over our workforce every 5 years so we can get the most current skills, that of course isn't going to work. So I think we need to start thinking differently about this and look for people who are good problem solvers and thinkers and continuous learners who have curiosity. And then we need to provide them the avenues for upskilling and reskilling. At Capital One, when we were confronted with this problem of the skills gap and the ever-evolving skills need with 10,000 people in our tech workforce, we were like, what are we going to do about this? And so we decided to create what we call Capital One Tech College. We offer hundreds of courses, and we really expect all of our people to be taking those courses. We have associates who are deans of our college and who are instructors. And we even offer classes for executives so that they can learn more about technology to shape their business strategies. Well, I'm not foolish enough to know that everybody can scale up to an in-house program the way that we have. But I will tell you, I think it's absolutely imperative that tech leaders are budgeting both dollars and time for their tech associates to continue to learn throughout their career. And I think that this new or maybe retro approach to teaching people their tech skills on the job gives rise to a lot of advantages. I think it really requires us to embrace a growth mindset, the idea that people can continuously learn, a concept made famous by Carol Dweck, of course. When we took our tech executives at Capital One through some growth mindset training, I saw this amazing shift. They suddenly started to realize that trying to hire people for being continuous learners was just as important or more important than that particular hard skill that they were hiring for that was probably going to be obsolete in 3 to 5 years. It was a big change for our company and part of the impetus of our tech college. I think this is really great for diversity and inclusion because I think this new profile starts to disrupt this innate tech genius profile that has been the theme of our industry over the last couple decades, that someone can learn everything that they need to know about tech and never have to be taught anything more. I think it also means we have to prioritize a culture of learning. And there's a ton consistent with a culture of learning and a culture of inclusion. It means you have to let people make mistakes and learn from their mistakes. It means that you have to start to assess growth right alongside performance. And when we do this, when we start to think about hiring for aptitude and curiosity versus hard skills, starts to create this new profile that seems an awful lot like the beginning of our industry and a lot like my story. Oop. Oh, we're missing a slide. Okay. Well, I think what this, let me wrap up here. I think what this means for us is that, we have to think differently about how we address the skills that we need for tomorrow. We have to be an industry that is more welcoming. We have to think about inclusion. We have to make sure that people have the opportunity to grow throughout their career. If we don't bring the right people into technology and get them to stay, because we know underrepresented minorities drop out of tech at over double the rate of their majority peers, we're never going to solve for the skills gap. And one of the things I'm most proud of at Capital One is our Capital One Developer Academy. We took the idea that computer science is very competitive and not very diverse, and we took our commitment to growth mindset, our mechanisms we had created out of our tech college, and our commitment to diversity and inclusion, and said, why don't we bring in people who are not computer science majors and teach them to code? And we have done that. We call it our Capital One Developer Academy, or CODA. We're in our 3rd class. We brought in 150 students this year from non-computer science backgrounds, and they're in the process of learning to code. And I want to tell you that it's really turning out to be a huge success. Not only are we producing a more diverse workforce than we would out of computer science majors because other majors are more diverse, but we also are bringing in people that just think differently because they were business majors or English majors or philosophy majors. It's really an awesome program, and it's really applying thinking differently about how we solve for both this skills gap and the diversity challenge. And as D&I professionals, I think we can all work within our companies to help connect the dots that this looming skills gap problem is real and that diversity and inclusion can be a really important enabler for solving for this problem. Thank you very much. I'll be around if you have any questions.